Let's talk about Reading Festival. So I've been attending Reading Festival for the last 10 years. Every year I hear the same things around this time of year when the lineup comes out. Usually it goes something along the lines of, this used to be such a good festival, what happened? It's definitely no longer a rock festival.
Yeah, that's shit, guys. That's actually shit. Yeah, I won't lie to you. That's shit. That's shit.
Basically, this lineup is shit. I hear it every single time. Now, I've clearly got a bias. I've been attending this for the last 10 years. 10 years in a row, might I add. But every year it sells out. Every year I have an amazing time. So I pose the question, why is the lineup so bad? Well, the short answer is it's not. And to explain this further, I think I've got 3 points that can highlight why. Part 1, you're getting old. I was having a conversation with my best friend the other day, and he said, I'm pretty disappointed by this year's lineup. There's some quality names on there, but I don't understand why there's artists like Post Malone and Lil Pump. Now, anyone that knows me knows that I'm really not an advocate for mumble rap.
I sent my bitch to the store because we ran out of soda. What?
And I find the kind of trap movement in general rather uninspiring, but let's just roll with this for a second. Many people look at festivals like Reading and Leeds and think that it's a rock and roll festival. And I think for a long time that was probably quite true. Certainly when I was 18 it was the case in 1977, it was that case in 85. But I'm not sure that rock and roll is its core beliefs. Whilst Reading and Leeds still predominantly focus on band-based music, the lineup in recent years has included a lot more rappers and DJs, especially after the festival expanded in 2013 and included 2 extra stages specifically for that. But the festival itself isn't really a rock festival. Reading and Leeds has always reflected what the kids are listening to. And in recent years, I don't think rock music is inspiring young people in the same way that it was 10 to 20, hell, 50 years ago. With alternative music only making up 5% of the current chart, it's no wonder that the festival is maybe moving its goalposts slightly to meet these expectations. 10 years ago, there was lots of metal and lots of indie bands that were flooding the lineup, like Metallica and The Killers. Because that's what the kids were listening to. If you go back 20, there's lots of nu metal, and you're pretty much in the height of the Britpop era. Because that's what the kids were listening to. Reading and Leeds make up 2 of the top 4 festivals in this country. And if it doesn't accurately reflect what the kids are listening to, then it might as well be the country's biggest rewind festival. Now, unfortunately, I don't have any statistics on this. I don't work for the charts company, I don't have access to Apple Music and Spotify, but I do have YouTube, and YouTube is a very, very popular platform for young people. So let's take the top 3 indie bands that have released their debut album in the last 5 years and compare their view counts. Catfish and the Bottlemen, you can expect them to have anywhere between 2.8 and 10 million views for their music. Wolf Alice clocks at a top of 4 million, and the 1975 lead the way with 35 million views for their track The Sound, taken from their latest album. To put this in perspective, Post Malone's Rockstar,
man, I feel just like a rock star,
has 232 million plays. It came out last year. And Gucci Gang,
Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang,
Gucci Gang. I never thought I'd ever talk about Gucci Gang on a video before.
Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang, Gucci gang.
Gucci Gang by Lil Pump tops out at a phenomenal 522 million plays. Now, let's just put that into some context by taking one of the headliners from this year's festival. Kings of Leon's latest single, Walls, taken from their latest album, sits at 19 million views. And there's an argument to say there, well, yeah, it's a later album of theirs, it's not going to be as popular as something from a debut album. Let's take Sex on Fire, which is by far their biggest single. That has 255 million plays, but it's 8 years old. It's had 8 years to rack up all those views. You may not like a lot of these artists that are on this lineup, but if you're Melvin Benn, who runs Reading and Leeds,
it is bizarre in some respects.
You'd be mad not to book them, because it's what the kids are listening to. Part 2 is that there are too many festivals. It's a relatively simple one, but in the last 10 to 15 years, there's been a significant increase in the amount of festivals, with 5 out of the 10 biggest festivals in this country debuting after the year 2000. A report revealing the attendance of UK gigs and festivals rose from 27.7 million people to 30.9 million people from the year 2015 to 2016. That's an increase of 3.2 million people in 1 year. Now, like most of the top 10 festival organisers in this country, you're going to want some UK and EU exclusives. Now that must prove challenging with so many festivals, especially with the birth of Download Festival in 2003, which saw a dilution of the rock and metal niche that Reading had for so many years prior. Reading have decided to move with the times rather than compete for the niche. And part 3 is, it's basically science. It's clear to me as a 28-year-old man, there has to be some form of psychology that goes into why I keep hearing these statements. It is a theory I've had for quite a long time. The theory is that most people discover their musical taste when they're a teenager, between the ages of, I'd say 14 to 17, but let's just say anything from 11 onwards. I was chatting to my buddy Andy the other day about this theory, and he informed me that he just read a news report on a similar kind of thing. I'll add a link to the news article if you want to read it. The theory kind of holds up, right? We're at our most hormonal, we are in absolute need to both rebel and conform, so we end up rebelling against our parents and our teachers, and we end up copying each other. The Infinite Monkey Cage did a great podcast about this recently. I highly recommend listening to it. It was hilarious. A New York Times analysis of some Spotify data proves this point for me. They say that most men find their favourite songs when they're 14 and most women when they're 13. They analysed every Billboard chart-topping song from the years 1960 to the years 2000. And using Creep by Radiohead as an example, they found it to be the 164th most listened to song by men who were aged 38. These men would have been 14 years old when the song came out in 1993. Just done the maths. It's correct. 1993 minus 14 plus 38 equals 2017. That makes sense. Proving there's some legs to this theory. Furthermore, Creep doesn't even make it into the top 300 songs for people who are 10 years younger or 10 years older. The same can be said for The Cure's Just Like Heaven, which is particularly popular among 41-year-old women, who would have been 11 when the song came out in 1987. That being said though, it is an absolute tune.
Show me how you do that trick. The one that makes me scream, she said. The one that makes me laugh, she said. Threw her arms around my neck.
I can align with this. I discovered my favourite album in 2005, which is Block Party Silent Alarm, and I still maintain it's the greatest album I've recorded. The difference is, I still listen to new music. New music still excites me, and that's great. In conclusion, this is just the first Reading and Leeds announcement. We'll get loads more bands, and there's going to be a separate video about breaking down the poster. I've gone a bit overboard with the statistics, so don't be scared if you feel unsure about this lineup. You know, it's a part of getting older, but just know that you won't be the first and you won't be the last to have this feeling. It's just more of a reflection on your music taste. It will be going on without you. It more than likely will sell out. After all, let's remember that Daphne and Celeste played Reading Festival one year. 50 Cent got bottles off. And there was that band, the FFers, that went to play the introducing stage, and everyone had jumped to the conclusion that it was going to be Foo Fighters. Oh, that poor band. So you have to ask yourself, do you start listening to new music again? Or are you happy with what you've got and you'll just wait until Rewind comes to your era?